Hi, I'm Jack Howell. Are you a great sight reader? Do you never miss, even if the music is rhythmically complex, highly chromatic, or even atonal? Do you learn new music quickly, even music that others struggle to play well, and never make mistakes in performance, even in situations that other people find stressful? Is your fundamental technique so deep that you don't really think about it, you just play? Do you memorize easily and improvise well? If so, this video is not for you. If, however, you wish you made fewer mistakes while practicing and performing, I may have something for you to try. And fewer mistakes is relative. Whether your goal is to play an entire Rose Etude without missing a note, or whether you really play brilliantly but in auditions or concerts some little thing always seems to go wrong, fewer mistakes are preferable to more. So, we are going to borrow a mental technique from motorcycling, another one of my passions, and I'm going to show you a playing drill to practice this technique. I'm not a great sight reader or a fast learner. I am trying to make fewer mistakes. So I came up with this drill for myself a number of years ago. Even if you don't need this, some of your students probably do. If you'd learned to drive in, the last 20 years, you may already be familiar with the technique, which is called SIPDE, S-I-P-D-E, stands for Scan, Identify, Predict, Decide, Execute. I learned it in 1998 from the Motorcycle Safety Foundation. Excellent organization, teaches people to ride, helps them get their motorcycle endorsements. But it didn't exist when I first learned to ride. When I was a senior in high school, my friend Mike McLaughlin rode me on the back of his Honda Enduro 125 to the State Patrol Barracks, where in the parking lot a trooper watched as I rode around a course with some painted lines and shifted up to third gear and back down to a stop in a certain distance. The trooper turned to my friend and said, "How long has he been riding? A couple weeks?" Mike said, "Couple hours?" The trooper sighed, signed my test, and told Mike, "Keep an eye on him." Those were the days. 20 years later, and 3 different states' driver's licenses I realized that my Pennsylvania license had no motorcycle endorsement. So I had to take the test again. Which turned out to be considerably more involved this time around. I signed up for the MSF course, and the first thing we did was sit down in a classroom and talk about target fixation and SIPDE, the latter intended to avoid the former. Scan, identify, predict, decide, execute. This is how you stay alive on a motorcycle. I know this doesn't sound much like a clarinet video, but hang in there. Let's take a fairly typical report from a clarinet student who is, let's say, having trouble playing an entire concerto movement perfectly. The student says, "I don't know what's wrong. I can play all the licks perfectly. I've practiced them to death. I can play them over and over in isolation, but when I try and play the piece straight through, I lose focus and start making dumb mistakes. It's so frustrating." Now, let's imagine the student saying the same thing about riding a motorcycle. If every time the student rode a motorcycle they crashed, they wouldn't merely be frustrated. They wouldn't keep riding the same way hoping not to crash this time. Things would change. The student keeps making mistakes playing the clarinet because musical mistakes are not painful and expensive enough to change the mental habit that causes them. Yet, if you go on stage for an audition just hoping it goes better than last time, it could get expensive. In which case, you need a different way to think. You need a technique. Motorcyclists are endoskeletons among exoskeletons. Car drivers regard us with indifference at best, hostility at worst. Every single second we are on a motorcycle, we are solely responsible for saving our own lives. That may sound melodramatic, but motorcyclists who don't learn to think like that tend to become ex-motorcyclists, one way or another. At a certain point, it's kind of the same thing with musicians. For a professional musician, an exposed mistake is a little like a motorcycle crash. Even if it doesn't kill you, you can't afford to do it regularly. A lot of my students who are trying to stop making mistakes spent their first 5 or 6 years in a musical environment where mistakes were acceptable, maybe even expected. And then at some point they decided to get serious and try for some kind of career in music, maybe ed, maybe performance. This is a little like going from no-contact taekwondo classes to a mixed martial arts ring. I'm not saying that professionals don't make mistakes, but if they didn't approach music with a mindset that prevents the vast majority of them, they wouldn't be professionals. Professional musicians, like motorcyclists, find a way to look ahead and see where the mistakes are not. As one of my math professors used to say, so far, so what? My thesis is to apply thinking from an enormously fun activity where mistakes must be prevented because the consequences are potentially fatal, to an enormously fun activity where mistakes have no actual physical consequences. But in order to get paid for it, you might have to pretend that they do. So let's imagine you're riding a motorcycle using your SIPDEs. As you ride, you don't merely gaze and wait for things to catch your attention, you scan, actively sweeping your field of view, the road ahead, your mirrors, your periphery, looking for things that might kill you. The further away you can spot such a thing, the more time you have to identify the dark spot on the road that might be spilled diesel, or the loose gravel kicked up by cars on the inside of a right-hand curve, the farm dog running loose, the car in the driveway on the right whose brake lights just lit up, the oncoming car that will arrive at an intersection the same time as you and might turn left. Then you predict how the thing is going to try to kill you. You decide on a path of travel that eliminates that attempt, and you execute your maneuver. The car with the brake lights, you predict. You're going to see backup lights in 1 second and the car will back out. If it's far enough away, maybe you slow down and wait for that to happen. If it's close, maybe you speed up and get past before it can happen. If there's an open lane to your left, maybe you move over and speed up. Whatever. One way or another, you execute a maneuver that makes it impossible for you and the car to occupy the same place at the same time. The scenarios in motorcycling are endlessly variable. They are continual and overlapping. Your mental focus must be external, aggressive, systematic, and most importantly, habitual. This uses our concentration the way it is evolved, to identify and cope with threats. This is how all humans focus, well, the ones who survive, when they are continually faced with dire consequences. We are all here now because a distant ancestor scanned the forest for things that might kill him, identified a slightly lighter patch of tan as saber-toothed tiger fur, predicted that the tiger would spring, decided to put the point of his spear in the path of the springing tiger, and executed that maneuver well enough not to become a meal. Our ancestor then continued scanning for the next apex predator. Those who were not scanning and saw the tiger in midair got out of the gene pool. Our more immediate ancestors may have been steel workers or sailors or some other deadly occupation. We're here because they didn't screw up. For years I have said that music and motorcycling share the same cardinal rule, which is don't be surprised. The same rule would apply to, say, working with 40,000 volts. Anyway, when I learned about SIPDE, I immediately saw its application in music because I'm obsessive and I relate everything to music. Motorcyclists don't wait for crashes to teach us where we shouldn't have been. We train to ride where the crashes aren't. Musicians who do not learn similar mental habits eventually find that their career options are limited. So here we are again in another video talking about thinking. Everything that we play begins with a thought. Thoughts become habits. When anything, including thought, becomes habitual, we lose awareness of it. When we think habitually, it may seem that things just happen to us, not that we called those things into existence with our brains. I know it really seems like mistakes come out of nowhere, that they just happen, but every action begins with a thought. And the fact that we were unaware of a thought because it was habitual doesn't mean it didn't exist. The mental habit that causes many musical mistakes is that of looking at and reacting to each note as we play it, which is kind of like riding a motorcycle with your eyes locked on the front tire. This mental habit, sooner or later, catches us out and causes a mistake, which focuses our attention on mistakes, and the harder we try not to make mistakes, the more mistakes we make. This is target fixation. To avoid target fixation, focusing on mistakes won't work. Focusing on the bad mental habit won't work. We need to focus on a new habit. And so we're changing our thinking. If we don't change how we think, we won't change how we play. Fortunately, you can change your thinking, and a mental change can sometimes happen more quickly than a physical one. Worth a try? With your new habit, the SIPDE thing, you will look at a page of music like a motorcyclist looks at the road. As you play, scan the upcoming line, or few bars, or whatever increment makes sense. Identify what is coming next, predict how it will sound, decide on your musical and technical choices, and execute that decision. Let's say your part begins with a rest. Don't just count and wait. Identify what happens during the rest. Predict how it will sound. Decide to, say, use the cello line to bring yourself in exactly on time, and execute your entrance, which you have already scanned, identified as whatever it is, say a D major scale, predicted how it will sound, pitch and rhythm, decided on your hand position, oral cavity, airstream, energy, articulation. Now execute. I always think about this when I get a piece of music where over a rest someone has written, count. This is maybe the most useless thing you can write, because if you counted wrong once, what will stop you from doing it again? Write in a cue that reminds you not merely to listen, but to hear. And now you're doing a SIPDE. And you do it over and over until the applause starts. While you are executing one musical decision, you are scanning for the next one. You are identifying whatever it is, where the pattern breaks. And remember our rule of three, you are predicting how a modulation will sound. You're deciding to get your right hand down earlier for a break crossing. Over and over until the applause starts. Now, if that doesn't sound like fun, either you never make mistakes, or mistakes have no consequences, so it's too much work. Spending a concert or an audition fearing that you'll make a mistake, that's no fun. When someone says they hate auditions, I think, well, how do you conceal your misery from the committee? Personally, I find it fun and liberating to have a positive mental strategy for doing my best. If it doesn't work out, at least I know I did my best. Doing the same thing while hoping for a different result is not my idea of a good time. So if SIPDE becomes a habit, you will at the very least never miss the first note of any phrase. And since your decision included hand position, you won't miss the second note, probably the third either, and pretty soon it adds up. And once SIPDE becomes a habit, you won't necessarily think the words, you'll just do it. Now, assuming you're at least curious, here's that drill I promised. Let's call it the no-look drill, like the no-look pass in basketball. The purpose of the drill is to train your vision and ear to focus not on what you are playing now, but what you will play next. By the time you play a group of notes, you should have identified, predicted, decided it, and already be scanning. Because again, looking at a note while you play it is like watching the front tire of your motorcycle. My favorite book for this drill is Marcel Moïse's Technical Mastery for the Virtuoso Flutist, which Tommy Thompson introduced to me almost 30 years ago. Let me move the camera so you can look at it. Okay, so this is an amazing book. It's not music per se, it's math. Man, check out this handwriting. So it's a system of permutation that makes the instrumentalist play every possible combination of 3 notes. There are dozens of ways you can use it. It's still in print. Flute World has it. You don't need this book for the drill. You can use any solid page of notes. You can use any piece of music, actually. Rose 40, number 6 is a good one. And as you do this drill, you'll find different ways to use different pieces. But we're going to use Moïse. We're going to use number 1, Series A, half steps with in-coupled intervals. You see that each bar is the same. In that the first interval is a half step, yet each bar is different. It's encoupled with a different interval. 12 notes, 12 intervals, gives us a grid. So you're going to play each bar 4 times in rhythm with a metronome, and each beat will be a specific SIPDE step. Only execute and scan will be the same beat. So the first 4 beats you don't play. Beat 1, scan the page. Beat 2, identify the figure you're going to play, which can be any of them. Beat 3, predict how the figure will sound in your mind's ear. Beat 4, decide your hand position, finger motion. Beat 1, execute and immediately scan for the next figure you will play, which should not be the following one. You can make up your own rule. Maybe the new figure has to be on the next line. Maybe it has to be as far away as possible. Maybe go forward 3, back 2. You can go down the columns and back up. You can do diagonal rows. You can do squares from the outside in. Have fun and transpose down an octave or up when possible, but not the next bar. Why not? Well, for this drill to build the new mental visual habit, there must be a definite step that wrenches your gaze away from the notes you are playing and makes it as difficult as possible to look back at them. If you are looking at the figure as you are playing it, you're doing the drill wrong. Over and over. As you play each figure's first rep, scan for the next. and then identify the new bar. Really look at the notes and really see them. The third rep, predict how it will sound. Now, that might seem weird. How can you hear something while you're playing something? Well, how do you do it when you talk? Jazz players do it continuously while improvising. I admit I'm on thin ice neurologically because I don't know how this works, but it must work, because how could we communicate if we didn't know what we were going to say until we said it? Our words begin as thoughts, and so should music. That's the whole point, to think musically into the future, to know what you're going to play before you play it while you are playing. That's why execute and scan are the same beat. You should never be dependent on looking at what you're playing. You should always be able to look ahead. So why do you need these specific words, these specific steps? Why don't you just look ahead? Well, if you don't need them, you don't need them. But if you have trouble eliminating mistakes, you need a system, and this is one system. If you're going to commit to it, commit. Now, if you do this exercise correctly, and you may have to do it slowly at first, you will not make a mistake. If you miss a note, you're doing it wrong. You didn't use your reps to identify or predict or decide. You kept looking at the notes you were playing, or you looked at the new notes, but too much of your attention was occupied by playing the old notes, so you didn't actually see them. When I do this with students, like I showed you, I'll cover the bar they're playing and I'll point to the new bar. This identifies players who cannot play a note without looking at it. And those players may find it difficult and frustrating. However, if they stick with it, this drill makes them better players, especially better sight readers. As they improve, they can increase the tempo, they can decrease the number of repetitions, 3, 2, 1. And as they learn to run SIPDEs faster and faster, the steps blend together into a new habit of looking ahead and solving problems before they happen. In fact, this is a great sight reading drill, period. If it's easy, make it harder. Take a faster tempo, take bigger sections, fewer repetitions, and use music that makes you read rhythms also. If SIPDEs don't work because of a lack of fundamental technique, for instance, the knowledge that the run at the top of the second page of the Saint-Saëns Sonata is a D-flat major scale is of no use to you because you can't play a D-flat major scale anyway, use SIPDEs to learn fundamental technique. So why not skip the drill? Why not just start playing music like this? Well, if you can, do. But changing a habit is usually harder than that. There are 3 parts to a habit: the cue or stimulus, the automatic unconscious behavior, and the reward. The purpose of the drill is to take you out of the familiar environment that triggers the automatic behavior. Remember the student who was mystified at the mistakes? Playing the piece straight through was the cue that triggered the habitual misdirected focus, or fear of mistakes, or whatever happened, instead of correctly identifying and executing upcoming musical decisions. By altering context, a drill gives us the opportunity to perceive things we previously couldn't because they were habitual and therefore imperceptible. So it is likely to be more effective to practice the new mental habit as a drill in an almost non-musical context, then consciously transfer it to music. After the drill, when you play a Rose etude, look ahead. You will start to see all the opportunities for SIPDE. The long note, the rest, no matter how short, the rest, a pattern that repeats. A bar where the entire bar is just a G chord, or 2 or 3 bars that together are a 2-5-1 cliche. Having done the drill, you should now realize when you are looking only at the note you're playing. Now, does this mean that you never look at the note you're playing? What if you can see the note you're playing and also look ahead? I don't know. How's that working for you? It brings us back to the initial question. Are you a great sight reader? Do you never miss? Then my advice is not for you. Look at whatever you want. But if you are trying to make fewer mistakes, my advice is to train yourself to look ahead. Train. Look ahead, not at your front tire. Look ahead like a motorcyclist, as though your life depended on it. Scan, identify, predict, decide, execute. Those words have saved a lot of lives. Maybe they will help you play better. Thanks for watching. Okay, still there? I was on the fence about telling this story because I don't want it to go back to a particular person, but it's a true story, and it illustrates a costly mistake, and it illustrates musical target fixation. So Arnold Schoenberg's Gurrlieder was his last work, written in the late Romantic style of Strauss and Wagner. You know, where you could actually hear a wrong note. And it's a monster. It's a huge orchestra. It's 3 choruses, 5 vocal soloists, a narrator. It's long, it's difficult, it is dense. Audiences avoid it. It is exorbitantly expensive. This combination makes it absolute cyanide to orchestra management, so it is practically never performed. Getting it performed, or getting it programmed, takes a music director willing to fight. And in 1998, Maris Janssens got it programmed. This was of enormous importance to him. We had extra rehearsals, making it even more expensive because the huge orchestra, there are a lot of subs. 5 clarinets. Tommy Thompson was playing principal, I was second, Mark Nuccio was E-flat, Dick Page was on bass, and a local player who had been a runner-up to me in my 1-year audition was now first call sub, was playing 3rd clarinet. I don't remember the details, but at one point the 3rd clarinet had a loud, exposed low F. And in the dress rehearsal, the player played an F sharp. Or maybe it was the other way around. Anyway, Janssens stopped, issued a short, stern correction, and we went on. We got the first concert, Friday night. We got to that spot. The player played a very clear, loud, wrong note. Janssens looked daggers at the player, but hey, you know, you can't catch the arrow once it has flown. There were 2 more chances. Saturday night, we got to the same spot. Everybody in the section is thinking, okay, here's where you fix it. And the player played the same wrong note. If Janssens was looking daggers before, he was looking hand grenades now. It's unbelievable. Even more unbelievably, the same thing happened on Sunday. And the player never subbed with us again. And this was a very good player. So, what happened? You tell me.